let's move on to the next part. This is Georgia. Major news out there. Ryan, I'm actually very curious for your take. I'll just set up the details. Let's put this up there, please, on the screen. The judge who is currently overseeing that 2020 election interference case involving Trump has actually thrown out 6 separate charges, quashing the 6 counts in the indictment, 3 actually against Trump. The judge has left in place 10 other counts that Trump faces, and the prosecutors are now saying they're going to try and seek a new indictment to reinstate the ones that he had dismissed. They write, this is the Associated Press, the ruling is a blow for Fulton County DA Fani Willis, who already is facing an effort to have her removed from the prosecution over her romantic relationship with a colleague. We will get to that. It is the first time, actually, that any charges against Trump in any of his criminal cases have been dismissed. And much of this traces back to the use of a Georgia RICO law, which was associated previously with mobsters, that was then used to go after Trump in this particular case. The defense attorneys obviously said that this was the correct decision, but the reason why this is especially big is that one of these counts stems from that, quote, perfect phone call where Trump told Brad Raffensperger to, quote, find 11,780 votes. The reason that it was dismissed, again, has something to do with some of the complicated, like, minutia over RICO. But considering how that was such a flagship public part of the case against Trump, Ryan, I'm curious what you think about this in terms of the case.
Basically what the judge, so to step back, what prosecutors had to do in order to make this case was to kind of lay on a set of facts onto a series of laws that were not really written with this specific thing in mind. Like when Georgia sat down and wrote its election laws, they were not thinking in the back of their mind that the actual president of the United States would be putting pressure on lawmakers, on the governor, on election officials, on regular poll workers to find the votes, to flip the vote. So because they didn't have that in the back of their mind, they didn't specifically say the president of the United States shall not use his office to pressure poll workers to find 11,000 votes. And so what they had to do is take other laws that are written around the idea of protecting election infrastructure and protecting the integrity of elections. And they just basically took every law that they could find and slapped it into the indictment. And what the judge ruled here is that you didn't make your case about how these specific actions actually tie specifically to these laws. And so now what the prosecutors are saying are like, okay, well, we consider these to be edits and red lines. We're going to send you a new indictment that actually does spell out with more clarity on why we think that these laws actually do apply to the perfect phone call or to the other elements of what they say is a crime. So I think that's the problem that we're having. It wasn't designed with this in mind, and so they're trying to shoehorn in laws that do exist because they're like, well, this must be illegal. Now let's go find the laws that show that it's illegal.
Excellent point. The other really noteworthy thing to me about this was that the timeline just got pushed out. So for example, now the judge has granted actually a 6-month window to have to resubmit this case to the grand jury. Yeah, what date is it? It's March 14th. So now you got 6 months. I mean, who knows? Look, especially with all this other nonsense going on in that office, can you imagine how difficult it must be to actually get some work done? And who's the lawyer who's going to be doing it? Because it ain't going to be Nathan Wade. Well, he has, or she, has to then find a new prosecutor. They have to redo the case. They have to re-grand jury the case. Don't forget, the last time we did grand jury this case was, what, over a year ago now? At this point, this stuff takes a long time. So they've got to drop new charges, then go to the grand jury, then go through legal review.
They're running out of time.
They're running out of time. I mean, how are they going to try and try this case before November?
If I were them, I just go with the charges you've got.
But they can't because they need that phone call charge. They because it's such a critical part.
Then you can't bring up the phone.
Exactly, because the phone call charge is such a critical piece of the public case against Trump.
It's
one of the things that people.
It's the thing.
Yeah, I mean,
everybody
it is
knows
the
it.
thing.
It's
like the thing that publicly, and let's be honest, like this isn't just about application of the law, right? Like a lot of this is political. Well, within that, then they need this particular thing. Unless they do come to the conclusion that they do want to try and have the trial beforehand and move ahead. But that's not what they've at least said for now. So that brings us to a couple of the other criminal cases. Right now, the only criminal case going forward against Trump before the election, almost 100%, is that dumbass Stormy Daniels case in New York State.
Which
nobody cares
about. Which he can get convicted of and
pay a fine.
Right.
Yeah, I think it's like probation or whatever, but like it's not world.
I want to see him doing community service.
Right, exactly. And even then, I think rich people can buy their way out of community service. Isn't that true? Like the whole Jeffrey Epstein thing, where you can like use your nonprofit or what. That's actually a crazy loophole in the justice system. That's a whole other discussion.
And judges can try to stop that if they're being petty or just, whichever way you want to see it.
Sure.
But yeah.
Yes. Okay.
Like they can assign specific stuff. But,
okay, that's good.
But then
I've read enough about how rich people can use.
Then it gets into the hands of the social, the other side, and they can buy their way out of it. So you're right. You're definitely right.
Yeah. Being rich in this country is always a favor.
Yeah.
Let's go to the next part in terms of the Hill. Please put that up there on the screen, where they talk about the disqualification trial that's actually coming up. It's a hearing. So a Georgia judge, the same judge, is expected now to actually hear this week arguments as to whether Fani Willis herself should be booted from this entire case, the office that being brought then by the Trump team. So obviously this goes back to the torrid affair between her and Mr. Nathan Wade, and then the psychotic and insane divorce case proceedings, which were broadcast live for everyone to see. She claims that she reimbursed him hundreds of thousands of dollars in cash with no records, no withdrawal receipts or others. Maybe. You see if you can believe her. There's no way to prove what she's saying. And Ryan, as you've laid out previously, we don't care about the affair. We care about the in-kind gifts, because Mr. Wade was paid upwards of, what, $700,000 by the state of Georgia. And obviously, if he's both profiting from the state and then giving possibly in-kind gifts to his lover and or girlfriend with state money, that is a blatant violation of Georgia law.
That's the reason not to hire your girlfriend or your boyfriend with public money, because then you need to have an accounting of every time you go on a date or a vacation. Otherwise, you're in violation of these kickback laws. But obviously, you can't have a paper trail or a public accounting if it's an affair. So those two things are in direct conflict. Keeping your romantic relationship secret and documenting it is going to undermine the whole point of having an affair. So therefore, you probably shouldn't hire your
That's a pretty basic principle.
Like, that's just pro tips out there.
Right. Not really sure why it even needs to be said, but the ladies on The View will defend her. But as I pointed out, in terms of how this would come, this week we'll find out whether she gets to stay on the case or not. Then, if she doesn't get to stay on the case, then there actually could be a new prosecuting office, which would delay the case even further. And it says that currently, any delay would be then exacerbated by the appeal of that decision by the current district attorney's office. So if there is a ruling in this, it is going to drag this thing out even more months.
He's got the bozo down in Florida that he appointed that is delaying that trial. Right. You got the Alvin Bragg thing, which nobody cares about. You've got this punted past the election.
Bingo.
What about the wannabe Elliot Ness guy? Like how's that one going?
Well, I'm actually not 100% sure. So, the documents case, that was another one I think that's been pushed. January 6th. Yeah. So, this is a real issue. My other favorite part of this is that even if she is upheld by the judge, then Trump gets to appeal this decision about Fani Willis, could immediately take it either post-trial or pre-trial, depending on how they decide.
This would be post-presidency at this point.
The defense would then have to request discretionary review by the appellate court, according to the Georgia judicial system. And if they do, then that would take another 10 business days.
The dangerous thing that this sets up is a situation where Trump is president and then has all of these criminal cases.
That's the most likely scenario.
Hanging over him.
Right.
Which we've seen how that works with Netanyahu. So Netanyahu has these criminal cases waiting for him once he's finally out of power.
A good point.
And so he just does everything there's already a will to cling to power in all of these politicians. You add, and by the way, you're going to jail if you leave office.
Yeah.
Then they are willing to just do anything to stay in power. That's not what you want with Trump. Now, I don't think he can stay in power because he doesn't have. I don't think the Supreme Court would side with him trying to get another term, and I don't think the military would do it. So I don't think he has. There's no path like for him doing more than 4 years. Like the system is ready to spit him out, but he will have an intense incentive to stay. If he's got those cases hanging over him.
Obviously, very, very astute and correct, and it just
We should
sets
just
up
pardon
for.
him.
I mean, it's just going to be an insane
just
situation.
pardon him to Mar-a-Lago.
Well, what if he tries to pardon himself?
Okay, good.
I actually
but
think
it's a state case, though.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so that would
He
apply.
can pardon the federal cases.
That would apply for both the federal cases, but it would not apply. It would also be a huge stress test to the Supreme Court. And I think of, what is it? There's some 1973 memo in the Department of Justice. The president can't pardon himself.
Well,
it goes back to Watergate.
You know what you can do with a memo.
This would be fun, honestly. I feel like law school clerks or law school teachers are having the time of their lives right now.
Trying to sort
in terms
through
of
this.
Supreme Court, constitutional law, and all that stuff. I almost wish that I was in law school just so that I could study some stuff like this. Because when I was in school, it was boring as hell.
Hey guys, if you like that video, go to breakingpoints.com, become a premium subscriber, and help us build the best independent media organization on the planet.
That's right. We're subscriber funded. We're building something new. We want to replace these failing mainstream media organizations.
So again, to subscribe, it's breakingpoints.com.